What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to continue the conversation on just mental diets and hopefully add something positive to your mental diet for today. Got a bunch of stuff to kind of discuss, one of which has to do with the concept of acceptance, but accepting the situations when obviously it's fucked up or chaotic or dysfunctional. That can be kind of triggering. And I want to kind of unpack that and hopefully kind of expand some awareness on this so we're not spinning our wheels just like dealing with cycles of suffering that can be easily kind of shifted out of. And so when an undesirable event manifests and it's like feels contrary to love, it's important to take ownership for that. And not only taking ownership, but realize that somehow within you is a mindset, a belief, an assumption that has played a role in this manifestation. And that can be kind of triggering and hard at first to take responsibility and ownership, because like the old mindset was constantly wanting to be a victim of some they. It's always somebody else's problem. Is you're the you're just like, oh, I had nothing to do with this. I'm just a victim. It has nothing to do with my mindset at all, or my actions, or my words, or what I did with my day, or what I didn't do. And so letting go of a lot of that victimhood and separateness ultimately is the root of that problem. Feeling separate from the situation. Instead, by taking ownership, it's not saying that it's okay. It's not saying you go out to a garden and your intention is to grow tomatoes and cucumbers and whatever food, and you go out there and it's grass and weeds and bullshit and bugs. That's like an obvious failure. It's like, but not to sit there and like, oh, I just can't do it. I'm doomed, to stay in this state. Realize that everything is representing a state, and it's all reflecting your sense of identity, consciously and unconsciously. And so part of like when something manifests that's triggering, it's an unconscious thing. It's not something you desire to happen. It's just some unconscious program running in the background. And a lot of times you face these things when you're changing states for the first time. You're confronted with all these limiting beliefs and these assumptions that have locked you and doubled you down in like more and more of this state. Health is one of those kinds of things, where it's just like, it was like somebody who's now been kind of like practicing going to the gym, exercising, like swimming for like an hour a day. You start to feel a lot of these mental programs as you're taking different action. So with like the old state that I was in, where it's just like, I wouldn't say sedentary, because I'm lifting heavy shit and moving around doing like handyman jobs and just being active like that. But lung and heart conditioning was something that was like a poor shape, a poor state. And through, quitting smoking, there was this lingering mental narrative about how my lungs are just like not breathing that great, or, I'm just out of shape, all these stories, all these limitations, all these like limiting beliefs and whatnot that were still there, even though I was no longer smoking cigarettes. And I had smoked like a pack a day of cigarettes, I don't know, for over 15 years, 20 years, something like that. I started when I was like a kid, basically. And like, and that has been a progression, not to shame anybody that's smoking or anything like that. There was like a time where I was like, had no thought about it at all. But, it's just started getting added to my awareness of things that I don't want to have these dependencies on these external crutches, I guess. And it's kind of the way I was like looking at it. It was just like, it was a stress reliever, anxiety thing. I think a lot of it has to do with just breathing consciously and deliberately in the moment. I think is a big, I don't know, like a thing with smoking cigarettes that's like beyond just like nicotine and like the actual smoke and shit. Is just the conscious breathing, which I feel like is an important practice, whether you're smoking or not smoking, as a way to just get present and stable and get out of your mind a little bit and give yourself just that little bit of a cushion to kind of choose to to think differently, to be, what you desire to be. You're desiring peace ultimately in a lot of different ways. It's like, why are you in your mind having vengeance and anger at the asshole driver in front of you for driving like an idiot? It's like, well, you think that mental activity, that raging against that other person, by doing that, that's going to make you feel better, and there is like a kind of a satisfaction that comes from it, but then it spirals, and then it starts becoming compounded, and it ultimately spins you down a drain. But like, in the meantime though, if you just, instead of just like having vengeance thoughts and just wanting the other person to like, wreck and die, or fucking something bad happen to them, or that they get theirs, or whatever story you're telling yourself about the supposed other, which is actually just yourself, and a lot of like mirrored back to you, so as you're attacking the other person, it's coming back on you, and then you're spinning out, and you're the one heaping the fucking stuff on yourself. But by kind of taking a conscious breath, you can choose to like, hey, you know what? I just really just want to be at peace right now. That's what I want. It's like, I don't want to be just, angry and spinning out. And the next thing you know, then it starts, oh, I'm hitting every red light. Oh, I hit a pothole. Oh, this and that, and one thing, oh, now I'm late. Oh, now I got rode up. Oh, now I got fired. Oh, this compounding thing. But, when these things first start to happen, instead of spinning out, like you would have in your old state, realize that moving from state to state, you get confronted with all this shit. And not to sit there and fear about that, but to let go of the fear, because it becomes part of like the process that you're seeing, where it's like, oh, every time I change states, oh, boom, all of a sudden here's all these irritations, and then you get to see all the little stories that you have been unconsciously about it. Oh, maybe your wife does something very triggering, and then the next thing you know, you're spinning out about some narrative of how she's always doing that. It's like, well, that's not true. Why do I believe that? Yeah, and then you can start just letting this shit go. Stop telling yourself that, and choose to. It's like, no, I choose to see the Christ in the other person. I choose to see love in the other person, and not make up this story about some supposed judgment I have towards them. Because that's a big part of this old mindset, is constantly judging. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is bad over here. This is good. This is bad. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, who made you the judge of right and wrong? What makes you so fantastic? And that's, I kind of feel that way too when it comes to some of the shit that's on the media narratives at the moment, which is so draining at times, especially with the people like around me. They keep falling for this shit over and over again. It's just like, oh, okay, for the past 2 years, okay, it's been doubling down on error, wrong, wrong, wrong. Oh, but this time with this new situation, oh, we got war, we got chaos, we got dysfunction happening. Let's build the good guy up over here so we can tear down the bad guy over here, and we're gonna judge which one's is which, and in our judgment, we're gonna be so right that we don't care who fucking dies. It's like, we're the grown-ups that remember the past 20 years of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Oh, well, oops. Oops. It's the whole thing. You just gotta, it's the same type of thing. It's like, okay, that's what's going on, and in a lot of ways, that's part of the awakening process. People have to go through that to be like, oh, what do you mean, like everything, and it shakes people out of this sleep, so yeah, it is functioning, but not to get drawn in and sucked into that collective, because it's ultimately reflecting a war within the mind of humanity, which is being more and more so transmuted. So not to sit there and fear about anything. Ultimately, trusting that God's in control of situations, especially situations that are far beyond our own control. What we have to steward is our own household, and the stuff that we have directly in front of us on a day-to-day basis. It's with these small moves that start to affect people in a meaningful way, which then influences collective consciousness. And so, we just have to be the change, and not get hung up and triggered and then become unconscious and then falling for the traps and tricks of our old mindset that wanted to kill, steal, and destroy shit. So we got to let that kind of those narratives go. And even with what's going on now, you can have a narrative inside your mind about it. Oh, nuclear bombs and fear, 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 fear of the separate they coming to come get us. Or you can revise what you're telling yourself, instead of just parroting whatever fear is coming from the screen. You get to decide the narrative that you're living by. And when it comes to things that are going on and outside of your fucking little 5 miles that you're spending most of your time in, you can pray for peace. And I encourage everybody to pray for peace. That's important, to focus your attention on what you desire, not what you don't desire. And so be pro peace, pro love, pro heaven. And whatever's happening in the bridge of incidents, for that to manifest in your day to day, just trust God is in control of that, and ultimately pray for everybody involved. That and the thing of it is too, I mean, people reap what they sow in consciousness. And if some people sow the weeds without checking it, that suffering is self-induced. And so keep that in mind. But kind of back to before getting on that tangent, it's just like with acceptance, and even accepting something like that, it's one thing, when the shit manifests in your life with your family and stuff that it's definitely in your wheelhouse, you can do something about. Then you have this other thing going on where you can not fall into that pendulum. You cannot get swept up in that consciousness, which this is what I encourage you to do, to go within, ask God what to do ultimately. But with accepting other thing, maybe like I hit a pothole the other day. It's totally screwed up the strut on the front end of my car. Then compounded issue where it's like it was knocking. I knew that the spring was kind of screwed up, and the strut was kind of just out of where it's supposed to be. But I wanted to kind of look to see if there was any other things I need to get from the junkyard. And so in doing that, I backed the car up, drove it on the road, and in that just doing that, now the axle's all screwed up and compounding problem. And then it was stuck in the middle of the road, and then I couldn't drive it because you put it in reverse or drive and it just shakes violently. This is like it's having a seizure or meltdown. And so I ended up calling a guy from church to see if he could help me just push the vehicle into the yard so I get it off the road. Then he hurt his back, and then it's just like compounding problem, and instead of starting to make up in that, catching the narratives that are going on of, bad things keep happening to me. It's going to be one thing after another. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be frustrating. All of these stories that are happening, where in the past it would just spin me out personally into like a negative state of consciousness, into believing separation is real, into doubling down on that, feeling worse and worse, stressing out, freaking out. Instead, accepting the situation, and it's like, okay, is there anything I can do with my body, that can extend love to the situation? Or is it entirely in God's control? There's two important things to kind of ask yourself when weeds and like undesirable shit starts manifesting in your garden of life. Is okay, is this a situation where I need to participate with my body and my attention and my consciousness to add and extend love to it? Like another good example is like I noticed the other day, I was like needed to deal with like cleaning my teeth or whatever, and it's like sometimes you can like get in these fears of like, I don't even want to look at it or address it. I don't even want to fuck with it. I'm just going to pretend and ignore it. And then, in part of like the law of assumption, I feel like is almost like a stumbling block for myself sometimes, where it's just like not taking then action, where it's just like, okay, well, I'm just going to assume everything in my body is healthy. Well, then, boom, then you're confronted with the opposite that's holding you, in that state of like, no, it's not healthy, it's not this. I'm gonna go back to the swimming example. I'm just bouncing all over the all over the place. But with that swimming example, where it's just like, oh, I had that story about my lungs or whatever, and heart. It's like, oh, I haven't like cardiovascularly worked out, and I'm out of shape, and this and that. And then by taking the action of like swimming, knowing that these little moves is adding love to the body, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep doing that. And then as you keep swimming the laps, then it's like the body wants to keep coming up with excuses why you should stop. It's like, and a lot of that has to do with the mental narratives of like, oh, it's like, oh, so you're going to have a heart attack. This is painful. This is going to hurt. This is this, all these stories. And it's like that inner being, that new man that's within you, is constantly kind of like, that's not true. I'm getting healthier. I'm getting stronger. I'm getting better endurance. So you start changing those mental narratives as through your doing, through your action, and then by the time you get done, those little moves is like you just plucked one weed out of the garden today. You'll see the result of that when you wake up tomorrow, but you just keep popping the weeds out, accepting that they're there at first, not to make up a story about it, not to hide from it, not to pretend it's not there, but to see it, accept that, okay, this happened. It happened because somewhere within me, and a lot of times it happens as soon as you notice it. It's like, oh, there's a weed. That's because I'm a shitty gardener. It's that immediate kind of thought about it. Then you can immediately start to revise and go, oh no, this is an opportunity to take this out. And while I'm here, maybe I'll check these other things, see if they need water, or see if they need prunes, see if there's bugs on them, and then you just keep improving it. It's something that maybe an artist understands like more from repetition, from doing, than maybe somebody who hasn't like done a lot of creative types of things. Like the guitar. It's like it's possible to be completely in this zone where the inner idea that you want to play matches perfectly with what you're doing, and that exists, and that's a state that you can be in. But to get to that state, you have to go through all of these different types of things that are convincing yourself that you're maybe not good enough, or that can't happen, or, oh, I just need better gear, or I just, whatever excuse it is in the mind, and getting out of that, and what can you do today to improve, because this is a cooperative thing. It's like, we don't have any type of like control over like the bridge of incidents or how the state manifests. We can only start to embody it, trust God to bring it all together. But then the Spirit is within us too, and God's moving through us, through our speech, through our hands and our feet and everything else. It's like we're all one in the body of Christ. We're all being used to do things, and so by extending love, by just taking those just little moves every day to improve it. And a lot of improving it is just putting your attention on it and listening to that inner guide to tell you what to do. It's like I'm gonna go back to like teeth example. It's like, oh, it's like, oh, you just need to floss. You need to get this like little hook cleaning kit and stuff like that. It's like, just start doing a little bit of that today. Change toothpaste. Start doing a little bit today, and just these little moves. And you wake up tomorrow, and it's like God gave the increase. It's like I forget how the Bible actually describes that. It's like we plant the seeds and God and water it, and then God gives the increase. So it's working together. It's like you do the best you can, and then it's like when you're working out. I mean, you can't do anything about fat cells, really. It's like, yeah, you can like starve yourself and like exercise a lot, but like you can't consciously be like, okay, shrink, shrink right here, but not back here. It's like you have no control over how that happens. So it's like you put in the physical attention, love, whatever, and then just trust that God's going to give the increase. and you'll start seeing these gains, and start focusing on the gains, because as you start focusing on the gains instead of like with the undesirable, you know, you start to see more and more gains, and you start to see more and more like things coming together day by day, but realize that whenever you're confronted with it now, do what you can to add love to it. Stop believing it was real, but realize, oh, I just caught this weed right here, and now I'm going to pluck it, and then I'm going to move to a different state. I'm going to embody in a state of a child of God instead of a separate brain and a body ego, identity. Because it's all about identity at the end of the day. And it ultimately is, your identity is one with your creator. And so if that's not working together, then you're kind of in illusion and then spinning out in fear and falling for a lot of tricks and deceptions. And so, with that said, I think I'm about. So, I appreciate everybody liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking things. I appreciate your spiritual support and your financial support. Thank you for that. And until the next now, God bless.